So sue me. Let's play hardball. Good evening, I'm Steve Kornacki in for Chris Matthews. Let me start tonight with President Obama's counterpunch at the Republicans. It was less than a week ago that House Speaker John Boehner accused the president of abusing his authority as commander-in-chief. Boehner called President Obama a king and announced plans to file a lawsuit painting him as a lawless monarch. Late last week, President Obama dismissed the suit as a stunt, and now he's basically taunting the GOP. Over the past 24 hours, the White House has unleashed an onslaught of headlines signaling that President Obama will not back down when it comes to exercising his authority as commander-in-chief. Yesterday, President Obama announced plans to use executive actions to advance immigration reform. He also announced an executive order on the issue of LGBT workplace discrimination. The lead story in The Hill earlier today reported that President Obama is weighing executive actions after the Supreme Court ruled against Obamacare's contraception mandate. And today, the president met with his cabinet specifically to come up with more executive actions, telling them, quote, "We're going to have to be creative about how we can make real progress." Just hours later, he spoke to crowds in Washington.
I'm going to keep on taking actions on my own that can help the middle class. And they criticized me for this. Boehner sued me for this. And I told him I'd rather do things with you, pass some laws. Middle-class families can't wait for Republicans in Congress to do stuff. So sue me. As long as they're doing nothing, I'm not going to apologize for trying to do something.
Michael Steele was the chairman of the RNC, and Joan Walsh is the editor-at-large with Salon. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Joan, I'll start with you. I'm going to guess, I don't know for sure, I'm going to guess that might be the first time in American history that a president has said, "So sue me." But look, I mean, the president says that, and he knows the reaction that's going to kick up. He knows this whole, King Obama, as John Boehner calls him. He knows what Rush is going to say. He knows what Drudge is going to put on the website. He knows what Hannity's going to be saying on Fox News. He knows this is happening. It's almost like he's baiting him. Is that the strategy here?
Well, I don't want to say he's baiting him, because this was happening before President Obama reacted, right? They were suing him before he said, "So sue me." And they were never going to not sue him if he said, "Oh, gee, I'm afraid of being sued." So there was nothing he could do to make that threat go away. Does he now seem to be enjoying it a little bit? Maybe. They've been calling him a king. They've been calling him a tyrant since January 1st. 2009, so that's not going to stop. I think what you are seeing, though, is both sides in an election year playing to its base. On the one hand, John Boehner's base hates the president. They already think he's a king and a tyrant. This is good politics for John Boehner. On the other side, the president's base is very defensive of him, blames the Republicans for all the hard times that he's had, and I'm sure they, like me, enjoy seeing him sound defiant and give up on the years and years of compromising that led to exactly nothing.
Well, so Michael, when I say baiting, I guess what I'm saying is, sure, I mean, there was no stopping the lawsuit, but I think Obama might be sensing sort of an opportunity here. Thinking back, and I've talked about this a little bit before, thinking back to President Clinton, 1998, the midterms that Democrats won seats in 98 when they never were supposed to, and it's because the Republicans overreached. The Republican opposition to Clinton was so overheated, they tried to impeach him, and it backfired miserably. And I almost sense the White House here and President Obama maybe recognizes, hey, I can stoke this. I can stoke this Obama is a tyrant talk. Sure, they do the lawsuit now, the lawsuit doesn't work, then they go even farther, and it backfires on them. It seems like he's trying to bait them into that.
I think actually you're both right. I think it's a combination. I think the U.S. is the government. I'm thinking about the soccer game. The government right now is looking at the fact that they can bifurcate. The administration can bifurcate this. They can play, as Joan rightly put, to the base, but they can also go the Republicans into saying and doing things that furthers a narrative that will be a nice setup for the fall about this president. As he said in that clip, I'm going to act. While they're doing nothing, I'm doing something. And as the economy seems to, still struggle, that's going to be tied to the Republicans doing nothing. And so I think the smart side of the politics here is for Republicans to not overreach, to dial back the rhetoric, to put on the table.
Well, that's easier said than done, though, isn't it? I mean, because again, we've heard impeachment how many times already?
Steve, absolutely. I think we're actually kind of past that point. So my saying it is a little bit mute, but I say it nonetheless because I still think there are still windows here for Republicans to make the case going into the fall without jeopardizing the Senate, without jeopardizing other opportunities against this administration.
Well, President Obama has been energized, obviously, by these attacks on his authority. On Friday, he forcefully denounced the Boehner lawsuit in an interview with ABC News.
I'm not going to apologize for trying to do something while they're doing nothing.
Even if he gets sued.
You know, the suit is a stunt.
Yesterday, he attacked Republicans as obstructionists on the issue of immigration.
I take executive action only when we have a serious problem, a serious issue, and Congress chooses to do nothing. If Congress will not do their job, at least we can do ours.
And today, he attacked Republicans for derailing parts of his agenda that he says are not controversial.
People just want to see some results. And objectively, if you look at the agenda I'm putting forward, the things that we're trying to get done, like just fix some bridges and roads, it really shouldn't be controversial. It's not crazy. It's not socialism. You know, it's not, you know, the imperial presidency, or no laws are broken.
As the NBC News political team writes in today's first read, the White House loves the lawsuit. It only emphasizes the contrast that one branch of government is doing something while the other branch is doing nothing. Bottom line, the White House sees a political opportunity here. So, Joan, I mean, we're talking about how, you know, from the standpoint of sort of rallying your base, there's something here for both sides. We know the Republican one, he's the king, here we go, it's the tyrant all over again. And we know the Democratic one, obviously he's trying to, you know, he's trying to do something on the Democratic agenda here. He's fighting these Republicans who want to stop him. I wonder, we always look at sort of, we talk so much about, are there any swing voters left anymore? Are there any people in the middle who are still trying to make up their minds? But I wonder if there are any people like that out there, if there is anybody who's persuadable. When you're at 42% in the polls like Obama is right now, when your presidency's kind of stalled in Congress like it is right now, at a very basic level here, the theater of this has got to look good for him. He looks like he's fighting, and if you look at the issues he's fighting for here, by the way, they're all pretty popular.
I think the theater is great for him. I mean, he, you know, yes, he would love his his approval rating to be higher, Steve, but so would John Boehner. There are a few people less popular than John Boehner and the House Republicans. So in a battle of the president against John Boehner, he looks like a titan. And, you know, even that clip, I don't know what he's going to do through executive orders on infrastructure. I'm not sure he can do anything. But really, bridges and tunnels and roads used to be a bipartisan affair. That kind of legislation used to pass Washington easily. It did not used to be polarizing. It did not used to lead to obstruction. So that's just a measure of what this president is up against and what people really can't stand about the current Congress.
And is there, so Michael, is there any way, because so again, we talk about this, you know, the Republican base is kind of locked in. I mean, it's been a tyrant almost from day one with Obama, and the Democratic base is kind of locked in. Is there thinking on the Republican side, and maybe it's totally flawed if there is, but is there thinking on the Republican side strategically that they can win over people outside of the Republican universe, outside of Republican world, to this idea that the president is overreaching with his executive authority? Maybe it's with immigration, maybe it's with the lawsuit. Do you think that they actually believe they can grow that perception?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you start at the fact that the president says 42%. That means there's 58% of the voters out there have a negative opinion. So you have that is a kind of a baseline start. And then you have decisions like the Supreme Court decision this week, which more than smacked the president on the hand for his appointment strategy or acting extra executively on the issue of appointments. So yeah, there are these small narratives that have kind of sort of feed into the overall narrative about this president, and the theme that yeah, he blusters about, you know, no cooperation and Republicans not helping and not doing anything. But at the end of the day, you know, where the rubber meets the road, the president is still falling short, and he's falling short in the economy, he's falling short on jobs, he's falling short on a number of other things. So that kind of feeds that. But the other side of this, and this kind of talks about that window that I mentioned before, is that, you know, the House has sent bills to the Senate that have passed the House. They've not all been, undo Obamacare or an abortion. There have been some substantive bills that have passed the House on economic development and job creation and the like that have gone to the Senate and stalled because Harry Reid doesn't even bring them let them get through the committee, let alone to the floor. So you have that top line narrative as well. So I think Republicans can frame this about, it's not just about a do-nothing Congress, but a do-nothing executive, or more importantly, an executive that does too much.
All right.
But
well,
those job creation bills are largely
quickly,
deregulation bills. They're not job creation.
Well, no, that's your opinion. But the fact is, it's a bill, and it has gone to the Senate, and the Senate has done nothing with it. So if it's that, show that it's a bad bill, vote it down. So that's, is the president sitting there telling the House, send me a bill? We've sent you bills. You just don't let your Senate leadership put the bill to a vote so that we can have this debate whether or not, as you put it, it's a bad bill.
And that's sort of the story. That's the story of the last few years, right? I mean, the Republicans in the House are pursuing one agenda, and the White House is pursuing a completely different agenda, and neither branch seems to be working with the other ever. Anyway, I want to thank Joan Walsh, Michael Steele for coming on. I appreciate it. Coming up, Republicans are thrilled with the Supreme Court's Hobby Lobby decision. But guess what? So are Democrats. Tonight, who really has the political advantage on this very controversial issue? Also, Americans haven't been paying much attention to the gains the radical Sunni group ISIS has been making in Iraq. Maybe it's time we do, because they have their eyes set on the West. And African Americans helped push Thad Cochran over the top in his primary race. Now they're saying we want something in return, your support for voting rights. And finally, as you may know, the U.S. men's national soccer team lost today to Belgium in the knockout round at the World Cup in Brazil. It was a dramatic finish. Belgium took a 2-0 lead in extra time, but the USA fought back, scoring a goal and coming within a whisker, an agonizing whisker, of tying the match. Congratulations to the Americans for making it as far as they did. Congratulations to Belgium for moving on to the quarterfinals against Argentina, who also won today. This is Hardball, Place for Politics.